My name's Paddy Gibson. I've been active in the campaign opposing the Northern Territory intervention since it started in 2007. I'm from Sydney, and there's a group there, the Stop the Intervention Collective, that I've helped to set up and organise. And here in Alice Springs we have a group, the Intervention Rollback Action Group, that I also play a role in. As well as that, I'm actually doing some research for Jumbunna, the Indigenous House of Learning at the University of Technology, Sydney, and writing about the impact that the Northern Territory intervention is having here at the community level.
So, what are you finding out?
Well, the intervention and policies that are associated that have come alongside the intervention, such as what's called Working Futures, or the Hub Towns policy, that the Northern Territory government and the federal government working in with them as well are having a very, very destructive impact on Aboriginal people, already in incredible poverty and facing very, very serious social issues due to years of racism and marginalisation and neglect already. On top of that, with the intervention, you are really seeing very acute social trauma and far more problems associated with poverty that have come alongside the intervention, and dislocation and displacement, it needs to be said. Large numbers of people being forced to leave their communities in the remote areas to come into places like Alice Springs or other town centres, Tennant Creek, Katherine, and up in Darwin. So it is causing a lot of problems here, and sort of pushing Aboriginal people now, looking at how can we try and fight back and turn this around.
Can I just get you to tease out a little bit, what difference has the intervention made?
I think there's a few things. The intervention has made it far harder for people to actually live as an Aboriginal person. Far harder to live on your community in a remote area, far harder to live in a town camp here in Alice Springs, or to work for an Aboriginal organisation that exists in town. The whole policy of the intervention is hostile to Aboriginal people living as Aboriginal people on their land. The purpose of the intervention is to try and assimilate Aboriginal people, to break up their communities, and to force them into this mainstream white society. How the government sees it, and so all of the policy is designed around that goal. And we've had previous policies, the child removal policies, the policies of assimilation that existed previously that have caused immense trauma, and we're seeing the same thing happening today with the intervention.
Can you just give us some examples of what you're talking about there, and how it, in practical terms, is affecting Aboriginal people on the ground?
Yeah. So say you have a remote community like Umbludawitch, or here at Santa Teresa, another one near Alice Springs here. So what's happened with the intervention is the government's come in and taken over the land, so it's Aboriginal title land, it's Aboriginal land that people fought back and won. The government's taken over and said, this isn't your land anymore, this is our land, and we're going to install a government manager to be, have complete control, of the community. We're going to build them a house with a big barbed wire fence around it, and this is your new boss. This is the person who's going to run the daily affairs. Your elders, your local community council, they no longer have any power, they no longer have any say. They push to one side. So in that immediate sense, there's this incredible disempowerment of the people. Alongside that, they cut what's called the Community Development Employment Program, which employed large numbers of Aboriginal people in the areas to provide services in their community. That was cut by the Howard government, and it was the Labor government sort of put a stop to the total annihilation of CDP, but they changed it to be far less places, and rather than getting paid wages, you're getting paid through Centrelink, and half of that is income managed on a little basic card, so people are working for this little ration card. So there's been an incredible loss of employment, and an incredible loss of services actually in those areas. So somewhere like, a Teacher or Hearts Range, for example, they previously had 54 people working in the community development employment programs, doing all sorts of things, housing maintenance, garbage collection, transportation to and from the school, all the sort of municipal work that needs to be done, providing services. Now they cut those jobs, 54 jobs gone. There's less than 15 of them left, and half of those people are working for the basic card. Right, so it's incredible loss of an employment base and a service provision base in the community. So that makes it far harder. There's no one to fix the toilet, there's no one to collect the rubbish, there's no job for you. So actually living in the community becomes a real struggle. You know, on top of that, anyone who's actually on the basic card system or the income management system, you know, has to deal with these layers of bureaucracy just to get their basic entitlements to, say, a disability pension or an age pension or an unemployment benefit. You know, they're constantly having to be visiting Centrelink in town. They can't shop, you know, at the shops that might be around their community. They might have to go to town just to do their shopping, or there's only one shop in their community where they can use that card and the prices are very high, or they can't fix their car. You know, so there's this daily challenge to, you know, actually access things that you might have previously been able to access before the income management system came in, or before the cuts to the CDP and the takeover by the government actually happened. So that, I mean, that's sort of what's happening. It's just getting so much harder to live and be Aboriginal on Aboriginal land.